Hello students, welcome. In this lecture we will see the X-ray diffraction. So the first question is, what is mean by diffraction and why it is used to find out the crystal structure. So the diffraction is the changing of path of a ray by some angle. That's it. So changing a path, it means a diffraction. And why we are using diffraction to find out crystal structure? Crystal structure is the atomic arrangement of the atoms, and now we know that atoms are periodically arranged in crystal and they are three-dimension. They are in three-dimension, so they can act as a three-dimension grating, and the spacing between these atoms is around 2 to 3 angstroms. And X-ray also has a same wavelength. So the condition of diffraction, as you know, is that the grating should have matching spacing to the wavelength, or the wavelength of the source should match with the grating, and here our condition gets satisfied. That's why we use X-ray diffraction for the crystal structure determination. So the first generation of X-rays, they can be generated by deaccelerating electrons. Deaccelerating electrons means you have electrons of very high energy. If you bombard or impinge those electrons on anything or any target, you can say, they will deaccelerate, and in this process they will knock out the inner shell electrons, and due to fill that gap of the inner shell electrons, the outer shell electron will jump to that position, and in between it will radiate some energy. That energy we can call as X-ray, or that beam or that ray we call as X-ray. Why this is called as X? Because they don't get deflected by magnetic field or electric field. So as I told now, that a deacceleration of electron inside a target or a metal gives X-ray. So here we assume a case. We have a nucleus here, and we have K shell, L shell, M shell, and so on. There are so many shells. Our electron, it's get targeted or it's get heated on the K shell. So this is the electron. It's now hitting on the K shell. So there is a vacancy here. There is a vacancy of electron. This has knocked out inner shell electron. So there is a vacancy here. To fill that vacancy, an electron from higher shell will come to the lower shell, and it gives a radiation here. That radiation we call as X-ray. So if the transition is from L shell to K shell, that radiation we call as K alpha. So L shell to K shell, that we called as K alpha. M shell to K shell, that we called as K beta, and M shell to L shell, that we called as A alpha, and so on. So these are the notations for that rays, right? So now if we have a target, for example, I have a metal here. This is a copper metal. We are bombarding electrons on the target, and due to these electrons there is a generation of X-rays. So for that generation of electron, we use very high voltage source that has voltage around 35,000 volts. Due to this very high voltage, that electrons possess very high energy. So if you measure the wavelength of the X-ray coming out from the target and the intensity, we will get a plot like this. So x-axis you can see here is the wavelength, y-axis you can see here is the intensity. and the wavelength is changing from 0.2 to 1.4. Now you should have a question that if the voltage is fixed, if we have a copper target, why there is a change in the wavelength? This change in the wavelength is because that X-ray generation is from multiple shells, that is not from a single cell. It is from the multiple shells, that's why the wavelengths are mixed together. So this radiation, whenever there is no peak, we can call that as a white X-ray. White X-ray has mixed wavelengths. So white X-ray has mixed wavelength. If you get a sharp peak in between the wavelength, that we call as characteristic X-rays. Characteristic X-rays are the production of characteristic radiation from a certain shells, right? So these characteristics, because they are a property of certain shell or certain transitions that we know. So suppose for example this K alpha is from L shell to K shell, and that's why we call as, we know the wavelength, and from this energy gap we can find out the wavelength very easily, because E is equal to h nu or h c by lambda. So we know the energy gap, we can know the wavelength. So we know the wavelength, that we call as K alpha wavelength, and this is intense peak, very high intense as compared to the white radiation, and that is nearly monochromatic. Monochromatic means it will have single wavelength, and you can see from this is a peak, sharp peak, and that wavelength comes is look like a single wavelength. Then again there is K beta, this is also called as characteristic radiation. So for diffraction we have to use these characteristic radiations, because they have high intensity and they are monochromatic. So can every metal produce X-rays, or can every metal generate X-rays? The answer is yes, with exception most of the metal produce X-rays. And you can see that this is a voltage, the voltage is applied for this metals Ag, MO, Cu, Ni, Cu, Fe and Cr. This is the voltage, and these values are of K alpha and these are of K beta. K alpha 1, K alpha 2 are the inner subshell transitions in between those energy levels. You can see the values of this wavelength is around 0.5 to 2 angstroms, and here also is 0.5 to 2 angstroms. So it's perfectly matching to the lattice parameters of our crystals. That's why we can use X-ray for crystal structure determination. Now if we have a row of atoms, suppose A is a row of atom, B is a row of atom parallel to it, C row of atom, there are n number of rows of atoms. This is the surface of the metal, this is the surface of the metal, and now you are bombarding X-rays on the top surface. So what will happen? This X-ray will get diffracted, and whenever there is a condition that is called as Bragg's condition, if it gets satisfied, then we get a reflection, and if it don't get satisfied, we won't get any reflection. Now reflection means a signal. Signal means if two waves are interact together, for example we have three waves like here, if they are in phase and we are adding these waves, the output will be increase in the intensity. So this reflection or the signal means we are getting high intensity from that particular plane. So now you can see here one thing, that this d-spacing, that is the property of a crystals, and we cannot change the d-spacing. D-spacing is fixed because we have seen the formula d equal to a upon under root h square plus k square plus l square. So here a we cannot change, HKL also we cannot change. So d our is fixed now. Lambda is also fixed because we have taken monochromatic radiation. Monochromatic radiation means it is having a single wavelength. So if it is having single wavelength, it means lambda is fixed now. Generally we use copper that has wavelength of around 1.54 angstroms, and this is fixed. So what is the variable here? That is only theta. So for different d values we will get different theta values, and from that we can analyze the crystal structure. So now if you observe, two waves are having same path difference, they will superimpose each other, and that we call as a constructive interference. If two waves do not have same path difference, it means that they will have a destructive interference, and if you get the signal, that signal will be very weak or there is no signal at all. So if you have a constructive interference, you have a signal from the sample. If you have destructive interference, you don't have any signal from the sample. So again, example of Bragg's law. We have planes here. The distance between these two is d, that is interplanar spacing. The incident angle is theta. So if the incident angle is theta, for example, you can see here, if the incident angle is theta, this total angle is 90 minus theta, and if this is 90 minus theta, this angle will be theta. So if you do a simple mathematics, you will get the value of this AB, that we call as x, and this BC we call as x. So this value of x will be d sin theta, and value of this BC, that also will be d sin theta. So the ray 2 has traveled extra path difference as compared to ray 1, and that path difference is 2d sin theta. And now if that 2d sin theta is equal to lambda, that is the wavelength, you will get a constructive interference. So this example is shown here. If there is a path difference of lambda, if there is path difference of 2 lambda, and if there is path difference of 3 lambda, this should be in multiple of integers, 1 lambda, 2 lambda, 3 lambda, and so on. So from one layer, 1 lambda, 2 lambda, 3 lambda, and so on. And that's why their intensities will add up. Remember that X-rays are having matching wavelength to the interplanar spacing, that is in 2 to 3 angstroms. That's why we use it for diffraction. And X-rays should be monochromatic for diffraction. It should have high intensity, and it should have a matching wavelength to the lattice spacing. So we will look how the X-ray diffraction takes place in real condition. So we have a sample here denoted by S. This is a sample. This angle of theta is the incident angle of the ray that is falling at angle of theta on the sample, and this is the X-ray source. The ray is falling on the sample and it is getting diffracted, and the angle between the undiffracted beam and the diffracted beam is 2 theta. So if you plot angle of 2 theta versus intensity, you will get a peak. If there is a peak, this means that there is a constructive interference. If there is no peak, it means that there is a destructive interference. This peak means high signal. You can call this as a reflection also. So you can see that peak is at fixed values of theta. So there is theta 1, theta 2, theta 3, theta 4, theta 5, and so on. And this theta is fixed and determined by the d spacing of the sample, because we know that Bragg's law is 2d sin theta equal to lambda. So is d is fixed, lambda is fixed. For a fixed d, we will get a value of theta. So if you know the d spacing, we can find out the value of theta whenever there is a Bragg's condition satisfied or not. Again the same picture is shown here, but for clarity we have shown the diffraction from different peaks. This is from 100, this is from 200, this is from 211. So the question is that can we have diffraction from all peaks? If you take a simple cubic or if you take a BCC, the diffraction will get cancel out in the BCC due to addition of extra atom. So here if you see that this is ray 1, this is ray 2, this is the diffracted beam. So these two are superimposed in each other and they will produce a signal of high intensity, because this we call as Bragg's condition satisfied. For example, now if we add an extra atom at the center, this extra atom have a part difference of lambda by 2 exactly, because this ray 1 and this ray 2, if they have a part difference of lambda, and if you put an additional atom exactly at the center, this part difference, if suppose they two have a part difference of lambda, these two will have part difference of lambda by 2, and since this is not multiple, integral multiple, that's why they will cancel out each other, and that is schematically shown here. So diffracted signal from top plane is like this, diffracted signal of bottom plane is like this. They are in superimposing each other, but diffraction from the center plane will be exactly opposite to each other and they will cancel out. So for 100, this is the 100 plane. If you observe the diffraction pattern, you will get diffraction from 100 plane, but for BCC 100 plane signal will not be present.